Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Just ahead of TFC's MLS Cup title defense, they have some unfinished business to do in the CONCACAF Champions League. The big tournament on this side of the world. TFC are going to look to find a place in the FIFA World Club Championships next December. But before they could get there, they have to see off the Colorado Rapid round of 16 match. Very cold temperatures. How would TFC cope? How would they be able to deal with being MLS Cup champions? Now all the pressure is on them. With Giovinco and Altidore once again be the difference? How would guys like Osorio and Delgado be able to pick up from last season? Would they be able to maintain their form? And what about the new signings? Will they have any impact here? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, I'm going to break down Colorado Rapid against Toronto FC. So TFC were back in action. Yes, it wasn't the MLS, but it was the CONCACAF Champions League round of 16 match against another MLS side in the Colorado Rapids. TFC coming off a great season where they won MLS Cup, and they're looking to build on that and possibly get themselves to the FIFA World Club Championships next December. But before doing that, they had to get past the Rapid in frigid temperatures, not the best playing environment. When I thought people going to the finals at BMO Field in the winter in December was bad, this was even worse. When you look at it, TFC, 9 out of the 11 starters that were in that game last December were featured here. When we look at the board, we got TFC in the red, we got the Rapid in the blue. We'll start with the Rapid, more of a 5-3-2, but initially on paper it was supposed to be a 3-4-1-2. When you look up front, they had McBean and Badgie up front. And midfield, they had Price, they had Boateng, they had Enzo Martinez, and on the flanks they had Castillo and Hairston as their wingbacks. What they tried to do basically was kind of clog the midfield, match up with TFC in those zones. And when you look at it, you got one, you got one, you got one. That's what they were trying to do, and keep it narrow, keep it compact, keep it tight. Then you would have the wingbacks against the wingbacks, and up front, if you could try neutralize Bradley and then spin behind him and break on the counter. That kind of looked like what Colorado was trying to do against the TFC side that went to a 4-4-2 diamond. When you look at it, you got Giovinco, you got Altidore just ahead of Vasquez, you got Delgado and Osorio in midfield ahead of Michael Bradley. Orome's debut at right back, and Chris Mavinga was unavailable, so they started with Nick Hagglund beside Drew Moore. TFC, what went wrong, what went right? Well, initially they didn't start the greatest, but they did have the best chances, and it stemmed from Giovinco. He was basically all over the pitch. You see one opportunity where he gets the ball from a long diagonal, combines with Oro, who was basically very advanced, and it looks like that's going to be his role for the season. He looks like he's not afraid to get forward, and that's very key for what TFC try to do with the wingbacks, or here the fullbacks. And he combined with them and forced a save from the keeper. Then there was another opportunity where he received the ball in this left channel of space, clipped it into the box for Altidore, but he nodded his effort at Tim Howard. TFC's problem was simply this: it was all a bit too stifled in the center areas, and sometimes we see where Giovinco and Altidore kind of clog each other's spaces, stay in the same line, and they need variation. They need one to drop deep, one to move to the wide areas, if one is staying central. So that's what we saw throughout the game. If one is dropping deep, you need one sitting here. If he can move there and then have one move there, it pulls out a marker out of the position. It keeps Altidore on his toes. It doesn't keep the defense static where they could just sit there and wait for the movement. Here, TFC kind of struggled in that respect. They couldn't get balls into the center forwards as well, and that was a big issue. Victor Vasquez didn't have his best first half. He often had to drop deeper into these areas to get onto the ball. And the one aspect was that Michael Bradley wasn't afforded the time and freedom that he often saw last season. When he did try to drop deep, there was always McBean or Badgie on him. And there was a one point where when they weren't really willing to press off, they would just simply try and cut off the passing lane so he couldn't get onto the ball. And that was very key. With Marco Delgado and Osorio, great in ball retention. They're able to get on the ball, pass and move, create spaces. But in terms of creating chances, they didn't do very much in that respect in the first half. And then when they tried to get possibly Morrow down the line, we saw Hairston step up a bit higher and kind of force him to pass the ball and not really break forward. So that was really key in what they were trying to do. And it kind of worked for a bit, especially in the first half. And they had their chances as well. When you look at the opportunities, we sometimes saw Enzo Martinez breaking down this flank and combining with Hairston and looking to try to overload that section. We saw Badgie spin Bradley on one occasion and play the ball out to the center of the pitch, and it fell to Price. Or it felt surprising. He fired his shot over the net. Very wayward effort. The field conditions weren't that great, so that didn't help out. Then there was another occasion where Badji and McBean combined well, and that was the first and probably the only time we saw them really combine in TFC's half. Combined there, Badji spun off Bradley. Ball was played through, free on goal, probably should score. Alex Bono makes a terrific save, and that was really their best chance of the game, barring a Vasquez deflection that fell to McBean in the box. In the second half, he breaks free, but Bradley tracks his run and forces what should have been a corner, but forced him to fire his shot wide. And that's really what Colorado Rapid offered, because in the second half, they kind of drifted off. And how did TFC win this game? Because they weren't that great in the first half. There weren't any real combinations in the first half as well. They didn't get the wingbacks or the fullbacks forward to really create chances from wide areas. And the center midfielders weren't operating to the standard that they did last season. Yes, it's the first game. We got to cut them a bit of slack, but that didn't happen there. Well, who saved the day? Well, it was Giovinco and it was Altidore, and they did it in various spells. You look at Osario's goal, it just stems from Altidore, who struggled in the game because he did well with his back to goal, but in terms of linking play, the passes were off, they were sloppy, wasn't really working. But that's how it stemmed. Just a pass into Altidore, he lays it up to Giovinco, who breaks wide into these half space areas, clips the ball to the far post, then Osario with a great header nods it past Tim Howard. Nothing they could do about that. 1-0. And through that, we saw other aspects of their game that really grew with time. We saw Giovinco dropping off a bit deeper and then clipping a ball into Altidore, who broke beyond the line. And we didn't see many of those runs because of the way they were moving. Clips the ball over the fence. Altidore chests it down, forces save from Howard. That was another great opportunity. And then there was another chance where Altidore and Giovinco combined again, and it should have led to what should have been the winner to ice off the game, but that didn't happen. And then they get the second goal as Giovinco. And once again, it's kind of Altidore just holding off the defense, playing it into Giovinco. And then the ball is not as slid wide. But before that, it was basically TFC played on the counterattack. That was another chance, actually. They played on the counterattack, broke free. They kind of slowed it down. It's Delgado combining with Oro. So again, another partnership. Clips the ball back into the box. Somehow Giovinco was unmarked. Side volley past Tim Howard. He can only watch it. And we're looking at what TFC really did in the second half. Giovinco and Altidore were able to get closer to each other and combine, and sometimes that makes a difference. We saw that in last season's MLS Cup run. And then the combination between the right back and the shuttler for the second goal is very key. And they didn't have many of those combinations in the first half, but they kind of switched it up. And sometimes individual brilliance and better talent pays off at the end of the day. And TFC now go back to BMO Field, 2 away goals, and they should have enough there to advance to the next round, and that's pretty key because TFC need to start the season well, and by the looks of it, they look like they're going to be just as good as they were last season. But let me know what you guys think. Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.